Hello and welcome back to the Greenstyle Inspire Tight Sew Along. I'm Sarah and I blog at Sewing with Sarah and I work with Greenstyle Creations. And this week we're sewing the Inspire Tights. So what I want to walk you through today is day 3. So what I'm going to walk you through today is adding the triangular gusset to your Inspire Tights. The triangular gusset is really great. It's kind of a low profile type of gusset. It's easy to install, and you can use this triangular gusset with the Inspires, which is what I'm using them with today, or with the Lucy leggings. I posted a tutorial yesterday on the Greenstyle blog for adding a gusset to your Lucy leggings if you want them to have more of an athletic fit, want to have a larger range of motion. The Inspire gusset is perfect for that, and you can find that as a free download on the Greenstyle website. I'll link that in my blog post if you don't already own the Inspire leggings. If you do, it just comes with it. And then you can also use this triangular gusset on the strides. The strides come with an oval gusset, and there is a video tutorial on the Greenstyle YouTube channel for how to install the oval gusset, but if you prefer the installation of the triangular gusset that I'm going to show you today, you can just swap them out and use the triangular gusset on the strides as well. So what you should have at this point, if you're sewing the Inspires along with me, is your front and back legs fully assembled. So if you were doing the inserts, what we did last time was I walked you through the process of sewing in those inserts. So you should have, 2 full back pieces that look like this, and the same thing, 2 full front pieces that look like this. Now I'm putting the angled inserts in. If you're doing the back of the knee insert, you may not have anything in the front. That's okay. Whatever inserts you installed, or if you're just doing a plain tight, we're going to be working with those fully assembled leg pieces today. So I'm going to take you down to my cutting table and I'm going to show you the process of installing the gusset. If you are going to be following along with me, you want to make sure you have some supplies. One be sewing machine or serger. I'm going to be doing this on my serger, but you can absolutely do it on your sewing machine with a stretch stitch or a zigzag stitch for install. Now some people like to reinforce their crotch seams, and you would do that also with a stretch stitch or a zigzag stitch on your sewing machine. And then if you want to add any top stitching detail to the leggings, I added some reverse, I don't know how well you can see it, it's so black. I added some reverse cover stitching to the tops of my inserts, and I will be adding that to the front and back of my leggings as well. You can do this with a twin needle, you could do it with a decorative stitch on your sewing machine, but I find that it really eliminates any chafing, there aren't any seams moving around in there, and it just kind of lends a fun, ready to wear look. So get those supplies handy and we'll head on down to the cutting table and get started installing our gussets. So for today, we're going to be working with our gusset pieces and our back pieces. So you want to grab those, you can set your front pieces aside. You're going to want to cut 2 of the gusset pieces, and then you're going to want to baste them together, wrong sides together, so that you have a right side on both ends, on both facing you and on the back. The wrong sides are going to be together. And I've just done a little basting stitch. This is going to get serged off, so it's not even in a matching color because I was too lazy to change it. But you've got that done. So go ahead and do that if you haven't already. And then grab your back piece. Okay, so the back piece has a longer curve than the front piece. And you're going to put it together on the edge right here. And you can give it a little clip or two. It's a pretty tiny piece, so it's not going to shift around a lot. But what we're going to do is we're going to sew, and I always start, if you're using your serger, I start serging right about here, but I don't cut anything off, okay? And then once I get to the gusset though, then I want to use the full, my finger got caught, the full 3/8 and seam allowance here, which means on my serger I'm going to be cutting some off. If you're not serging, then you're just going to be using the 3/8 and seam allowance and just sewing right there. And that should be pretty easy. Okay, so I'm going to take you over to my serger and I'm going to give you kind of a close-up look on how I do that so that you can kind of get a feel for how that's done. So let's head on over to the serger and install the first part of our gusset. So I've got my gusset clipped on here, and I'm going to start my serging right here, and then I'm going to increase to a 3/8 inch seam allowance once I get to the top of the gusset. So hopefully this allows you to see. I'm not cutting anything off at the top. But now as I get closer to the gusset, that's when I want to start using my full seam allowance. Okay, so I don't know if you can see that, but I've started about right here, and then I've serged it on there. So now when we flip it this way, you're gonna see that we have this other edge that we need to attach. So this is when we're gonna grab our second back piece. So I'm gonna grab that now. And that is going to be attached right sides together. But this time you're gonna flip out that little gusset and clip the second back piece. This is the other side to the gusset. So I think it would be better if I took you down to my cutting table and showed you that in detail. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And that way you can see more clearly what I'm doing as I clip these together. So I've gone ahead and I've serged that gusset on, and I just thought I'd bring you down here so you could have a clearer view to one of the backs. And now I'm gonna flip it out so that the side that's going to end up as the right side, essentially, on the outside is showing. And I'm gonna take my other back piece, I'm gonna place it right sides together with the first back piece, and I'm going to clip it, and it is going to attach to the other side of the gusset down here at the bottom. So when you take a look at it from the other side, if I flip it over, it looks like this. And there's kind of this spot right here where the top of the gusset meets that I generally flip the seam allowance this way and then just put a clip right here. And there will be a little spot that doesn't have where the edges don't meet, and that's okay, because once you serge this seam right here with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, it'll work out just fine. So I'm going to put a clip in that, and then I'll take you back over to my serger and I'll show you how I just serge right along there. I like to do that with the gusset up, that way I can control where this seam allowance is. And kind of have the maximum control keeping these layers together, and there's no surprises when you turn it over. So I'm gonna start at the tip of the gusset, make sure those layers are lined up, and I'm just gonna start serging with that 3/8 inch seam allowance, which means that some is gonna get cut off. And then you can see where I'm gonna keep the seam allowance flipped down and just keep right on serging. Okay, so this is the triangular part of my gusset. You can see where it just made a really nice V. And when I open it up like this, there's no gap there. This is a really nice V. And so now I'm gonna take you down and show you how we attach the front to this part of the gusset. The front's gonna go right here. So the next thing that we're going to do, we have now our back with the gusset sewn in on either side of the back, but we still got this open part in the front. You do not want to sew this together like this. This part is going to attach to the front legs. So in preparation for the next step, we need to sew our front rise. So put your front pieces right sides together and sew the rise. And then if you want to top stitch it, now would be the time to do that. I've gone ahead and top stitched my front and my back as well. And so then what you're going to do is you're going to lay your front and your back right sides together, and I'm going to flip it around here. You're going to take that point of the gusset and you're going to match it up to the center front. Okay, so I'm going to put a clip there, and then you're going to continue clipping all the way down the legs. Now, if you are adding the inserts here, if you're doing the Inspires, I would highly recommend doing a little bit of basting right where your inserts are going to meet. That way they don't look like they've gotten off. This is kind of like stripe matching right here. And a little bit of basting or some wash away Wonder Tape can go a long way. So you want to do that at both the top and the bottom of the gussets, or I'm sorry, of the inserts if you're adding them. If you're not, then you're just going to clip all the way down one leg. You've got that center clip, and then down the other. So your next step is going to be to sew, to complete your gusset installation, to sew up one leg, across the gusset, and down the other. And then you can sew your outer leg seams as well. And again, this is a good place to do some basting if you are adding some inserts, just to make sure that they line up at the right place if you're adding the front and the back inserts. So then you're just going to sew up the outer leg seam of one leg and the outer leg seam of the other leg. And then you're good to go. Now at this point, you could try to do some top stitching if you want to. If you'd rather have top stitching on the outer legs, you can always sew those first before you complete the gusset. Sew along the outer leg, top stitch it, because then you would have this open and it would be much easier. And then sew that inner seam and not do a top stitch on that, because sometimes it's hard to get your cover stitch or your sewing machine into those little leg openings. So after we do that, I'll come back and show you mine, but after that, all we have left is kind of the home stretch, is the hem and the waistband. So I will come back in a minute and I'll show you all of those seams completed, and then we'll be almost done with our leggings. So just to show you how this turned out, I sewed the side seams and the inner leg seam. You can see this is the front, so you can see my gusset, the center front. That's a little better. You can see the point of the gusset hit right my top stitching, about right at my top stitching for the center front. And then the side seams, I did sew those first so that I could top stitch them. And then this is just the back. And you can see the gusset there, perfect little triangle. And that's going to allow for a great range of movement. So now all we have to do is attach our waistband and hem our Inspires. I was originally going to wait for sewing the rest of the legs later on, but I think that it worked out pretty well. And I didn't follow my own advice, but I think that for the most part I matched up my inserts okay. Basting would make it even more exact. But I was in a hurry because I wanted to get this video out for you guys. So let me know what you think of that gusset. I'm curious to hear about what you think about the installation and whether you prefer it over the oval gusset, or even, you know, the super long gusset on the Super G's. But the method of sewing that point is very similar to sewing the end of the gusset on the Super G's. So you can use that video. There's a separate video for the Super G's, but the technique is the same. So if you've done this gusset, you can definitely do the gusset on the Super G's. And don't forget that there's that separate video on the Green Style YouTube channel for the oval gusset for the Inspires. So great job, post your progress, and I will see you back tomorrow for constructing the waistband and the hem on your Inspires and finishing them off.